Hello, Three Broomsticks listeners. This is Patrick, the editor, and I wanted to let you know that while this episode was being recorded, there was a little bit of construction being done to the building. Yes, even 500-year-old inns need repairs every now and then, but don't worry, the renovations are complete, and you can expect the next episode to be, well, at least as quiet as it ever gets here in the Three Broomsticks. But let's not waste any more time. Bartender?
Give me big old buckets of butter beer. Give me big old barrels of butter beer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butter beer.
Welcome to the Three Broomsticks. We invite you to pull up a chair, grab a butter beer, and settle in for a hearty discussion about Harry Potter. I'm Irvin Cateman.
I'm Sierra Obermark.
And Oreo is Oreo, but is not here with us yet, so we're hoping she'll be able to join us by the end of the episode.
And along with us, we have a wonderful guest today. We have Tavi. Yay!
Yay! Hi, Tavi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're so excited to have you.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Tavi. I am Swedish-Canadian, based here out of Stockholm. I'm a journalist, formerly worked at Radio Sweden, and I've done numerous other things. So I'm, a podcaster out at the very tips of my fingers. I'm a Ravenclaw, possibly because I'm a nerd, but I think all of us are nerds, regardless of what house we have. And I am a huge fan of Remus Lupin and Prisoner of Azkaban, so it's a great time to be on the podcast.
Excellent. That did work out well. Yeah, I've heard you guest on a bunch of podcasts, but I've never gotten to podcast with you, so I'm very excited for this.
Did you miss the one I was on Loa Mora?
Yeah, I think you were on twice, and I missed both of them. But I remember listening, especially the one about memories. That was you, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Memories and the pensieve, and I was like, this guy is so smart. Like, we have to have him on our podcast.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Good to hear it.
Yay.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came to Harry Potter and what that discovery was like for you?
Sure. It's pretty funny. I think I was sick when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I had a cold, and I wanted to watch TV. Because I want to watch like Tintin or Lucky Luke or some old French like cartoon thing that my dad had. And my mom said, "You know what? You get to watch TV after you read the first chapter of this new book I have here." And I was not happy about it. I really wasn't. I was like, what is going on? I do not want to read this book. And then I read the first chapter and I finished it that day and suddenly I became a Potterhead. So surprisingly enough, like a lot of my like defining personal characteristics, it's something that my mother forced me to do when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And it became a really expensive mistake on their part, because I went all in, clearly. Yeah, so that's how I got into Potter. And I've been into Harry Potter for the last 20 years of my life. So, yeah, worked out well.
That's amazing. That's such a fun story.
Weird way of getting into it.
Also, yes, agreed. It's an expensive mistake for most of our parents. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Little did they know.
Yeah. Just the amount of time we spend on it is absurd. So,
So talk of things that are expensive.
Yes, indeed. We are expensive. No. But
running a podcast is expensive, y'all.
It can be. So we are beseeching all of you, please, if you'd like to buy us another round at the pub, can you head over to patreon.com/3broomsticks? That's the numeral 3 to sign up. We are offering a lot of bonus content. We have discussions like our one of the Wizarding Almanac that just came out. We have chats with the hosts, all things Potter, on episode shout outs to any of our patrons. A lot of content is being added right now, and we have a lot coming down the pipeline. So if you do sign up, you can dive deeper with us into all the nooks and crannies that we feel like sharing. So we really appreciate all of your help in keeping the lights on here at the Three Broomsticks so that we can continue to talk about Harry Potter for a long time to come. And we thank you all in advance, and also for anybody who has even come to listen. We thank you.
Yes. And today you've come to listen to us talk about, for episode 24, we're discussing the 46th chapter of the Harry Potter series, which is The Firebolt. That's Prisoner of Azkaban, chapter 11. As always, we encourage you to read the chapter before listening. And we also have some recommended reading if you want to get a preview or a further deep dive into what we're going to be talking about. About 5 years ago, I wrote a trilogy of essays all about the holidays and the patterns of the holidays in the Potter books. So we're going to be discussing all of them. So there is Hermione's Horrible Holidays, where we talk about how Christmas really, really sucks if you're Hermione Granger. There's Wreath Theory, which is basically ring theory, but at Christmas. And there's Getting a Clue for Christmas, which talks about Joe's pattern of dropping clues and revealing hints over Christmas. In addition to those three, another essay we're going to be discussing is Professor Trelawney's Secret Crush by the stupendous writer Daniela Teo. She was a columnist on MuggleNet way, way, way back in the day, like as the books were coming out. Her column was The Two-Way Mirror, and I was obsessed. Like, I wanted to be just like her when I grew up. So, yeah, definitely give that a read.
Seem to have succeeded at least.
Thank you. Yes, I tried.
Let us, before we dive in, let us offer a toast to the comments on episode 21. This was our episode about Sorcerer's Stone chapter 11, Quidditch. We raise our glass to commenter Snitches Get Snitches, who had just an amazing deep dive into the rules that they believe are wrong with Quidditch and how they would go about fixing them. I do encourage you guys to check out the full discussion, but one point in particular that I thought was really interesting was their rule number, or their fix number 5. The snitch is worth more points the faster it is caught. See below for point details. But if the snitch was worth a time-dependent, decreasing amount of points, it would keep the chasers relevant throughout most games and would lower the importance of the seekers over the other positions. Snitches Get Snitches then went on to explain that point decreasing scale from 150 to 50. And then another commenter, Absent-Minded Raven, chimed in stating, the reducing value makes it more likely you'll get situations like Ireland versus Bulgaria, where the winner is a foregone conclusion, as one team is too far behind for the snitch to matter. At least there you had the uncertainty of how much longer the game would last. What do you guys think about this rule addition? Do you agree with Snitches Get Snitches? Is there something that you would change about that? Or do you agree with Absent-Minded Raven that maybe it wouldn't help that particular situation?
Irvin, you want to take this one first? Or should I jump in?
You jump in. I'm honestly still pondering because I'm really of two minds here.
I think maybe we are the same two minds then, because I'm not entirely sure here. I think that the Bulgaria v. Ireland situation is kind of, it's going to happen whether or not the snitch is worth 150 or 50 points, like whether or not you reduce the point scoring or not. It's going to be the same case anyway. And I think that having a rule that makes the entire team relevant and not just the seeker relevant is a good change. Because right now, you could have a terrible team and have a absolutely fantastic seeker. And that's all you really need if the seeker can catch the snitch fast enough. So I think the reducing points thing, it basically would be rewarding a team for having a really good seeker, which is a good thing, but also make sure that if the seekers can't catch it or aren't that good, that the rest of the teams are relevant, which is nice.
All right, and before I talk about how to fix Quidditch, Oreo made it! Woo! She's here! Yay! Hi, Oreo!
Hi, everyone! Time zones are funny. That's all I can say to that.
Yeah, we blame this one on daylight savings time.
I was gonna say.
Write to your congressman, tell them to stop it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, getting back to the snitch, I kind of agree with snitches get snitches, because I think if the snitch is decreasing in value, that adds a lot more strategy and sort of a lot more decision points to the game, which I think is always interesting, because currently there's a lot of situations where, like, the snitch is a foregone conclusion. Sort of, if you're up by 160, then there's no point in catching the snitch. If, you're up by less than 40, but you need 60 to win the Quidditch Cup, then you don't want to catch the snitch. I feel like with a fixed point value, you either want to catch the snitch or you don't. Whereas if the snitch is decreasing in value over time, then, like, it's a more complicated decision of, do I want to, take the risk of catching it now? Like, it could get worse, it could get better for me. I feel like the game would be much more in flux that way, so I agree with the suggestion that Quidditch would be better that way.
I also think, and I apologize if you already touched upon this, but I think especially with the other rule that snitches get snitches did suggest, which was to, I think, not release the snitch for the first 30 minutes. That way, the chasers and the keepers can already start adding points and, scoring and stuff. So even then, when you release the snitch and it's worth 150 points, I know they had a breakdown of when and how it decreases. But even then, if it is worth 150 in the first, let's say, 10 minutes, if you had a good chasing team or if you had a good keeper that could really impact the strategy. I think in general, these rule changes just make Quidditch from barely having any need for strategy to it just needs a strategy now. You just need to actually think about strategy.
Yeah. Well, because so much of Quidditch strategy as is just the seeker. Right. The seeker has to catch the snitch. The beaters have to take out the opposing seeker and protect your seeker, and the chasers are also there.
Yeah.
That change is actually one that Muggle Quidditch put in, where the snitch doesn't get released until X number of minutes into the game, because when you schlep halfway across a country for a tournament, as a chaser, you kind of want to play for more than 5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the reducing value, it does make it interesting because it does put kind of that immediate pressure on the seekers, so that we've been watching the chasers and the keepers and the beaters and everything, and then the seekers come out and it's kind of okay, can they do it right now? And then it's almost like mounting pressure, but also pressure because then the chasers, if the points keep going down and now all of a sudden, even if we do catch the snitch, we won't win. It puts more pressure back on the chasers to score up those points to make up the difference in the timing. And I think that really helps put the focus on the rest of the team as well. So I'm kind of for that. And I do think, Absent-Minded Raven makes a good point that, if in a situation where the winner is obvious, and there's no coming back no matter what, I feel like that's pretty rare, and it's not. I feel like it's pretty rare, and it's not something that we should be basing a whole rule about, because the snitch was still worth 150 points and Bulgaria still lost, and so it doesn't really matter either way. So I don't, having a longer game might be good, but if you're just getting crushed for another 10 hours, I don't know how much more entertaining that would be. So I'm kind of leaning towards snitches get snitches' idea, especially coupled with, as you said, Aurea, that snitch doesn't get released until after 30 minutes rule. I think that does help put that focus back on the rest of the team, which is nice.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, looking at like similar team Muggle sports, there's always a risk that, you know, you have a blowout game where, you know, one team's just having a miserable day and the other team is just crushing them. That is always a risk. I think no matter what the specific rules are of Quidditch, that could still always happen. As you've already said, even if the snitch remains 150 points, you could still just have a miserable day and just be slaughtered. So I don't really think that will make that much of a difference. Because I think also with that rule change, you will start the game with a different mindset and with a different strategy going in.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. All right. That was great. And now we can get into the chapter we're discussing. And as always, Sam has provided us with a summary of what all happens in the Firebolt.
So Sam wants us to sing.
He does.
I'm not sure I know the tune.
Do you guys just want me to do that? I can sing it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Fantastic.
So the title of this song is Harry Honey. It is set to this tune of Santa Baby, and it is as sung by the Firebolt. Harry Honey, come take a little ride up on me. Yes, please. I've been an awfully good broom. Harry Honey, just slip your legs all over my seat. Harry Honey, don't you think about that candy store, a snore. I'll wait up for you, dear Harry Honey. Grip me up with both of your hands. Think of all those stupid spats. Hermione and Ron, just think of cats and rats. Hagrid's crying about some bird. April 20th comes oh so quick. Harry Honey, I want you to ignore who sent me. Oh geez. Gonna die with 13, Harry Honey. Don't let that Axeman cleave us apart. Harry Beauty, one little thing I really need, the promise that you won't leave me, Harry Beauty. Who cares if Sirius killed your mum? Harry Stupid, I offer you the freedom to fly, not die. Why would you take Malfoy's advice, Harry Stupid? Ron might have a really good point. Come and trim my broomstick ends. Let your best friends work out their foolish amends. I really want you to ride on me, Sirius Black, and wait, don't you agree? Harry Honey, forgot to mention one little thing, Pete's Fing. Won't you look at that rat, Harry Honey? Sirius Black isn't the one. Hermione's just a silly old phone. McGonagall, stop making so much sense. Insert terror noises as the Firebolt is plunged into a potion to see if it's cursed.
Bravo.
Yeah. I'm speechless.
Sierra, when you and Sam, make a musical career of it, we'll say we knew you when.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh.
Also, trust Sam to write a Christmas song from the perspective of a broom.
of a broom. I gotta tell you guys, I read the first two stanzas and was like, oh gosh. This is gonna be weird.
It was inspired.
That was great. I kind of hate you, Sam, but it was great.
A little bit.
All right. Well, let's dive on in then.
I forgot how much else happens in this chapter and also where we're starting.
I know. Like, I was looking back at the chapter and literally all I remember is the feast.
Yeah.
Like, the big dramatic feast with McGonagall and Trelawney. Like, in my mind, like, that scene is the chapter. And then I'm reading it, I was like, oh, we have like 10 pages before that.
Yeah.
And this is a fun chapter because it picks up, like, right after a big thing. So, like, for context, like, Harry just found out that Sirius Black was the Potter's secret keeper and he betrayed them. Dun, dun, dun.
What?
And Harry has a lot of feelings about it. And lift the curtain.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that he's actually thinking about why no one told him, and he specifically lists Dumbledore, Hagrid, Mr. Weasley, and Cornelius Fudge, which is a flex. So I wanted to talk with you guys sort of specifically about those 4 people, but also in general. I mean, we can probably, the quickest we can talk about is Dumbledore, because we know why Dumbledore hasn't told him. That's not so much the secret.
Because Dumbledore doesn't tell him things at all, ever. But also, like, I read this line and I was like, look how far he's come in just 2 years from the, like, don't ask questions mentality in Sorcerer's Stone. Like, remember when he's in the little boat with Hagrid, right? And he's like, there's a Ministry of Magic? Like, what's going on? And, like, I'm a wizard? And he's like, but I shouldn't ask questions. But, like, I know not to ask questions. The Dursleys told me not to ask questions. And, like, now, like, 2 years later, he's like, why didn't the Minister of Magic tell me personally about this thing? So, growth.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me that in Harry's impression, he's like best friends with Fudge. He's also like, can you sign my permission slip? And it's like,
Right.
What, Harry?
But, like, I feel like I would do the same. Like, sort of any, like, adult who is just nice and helps you out, particularly if, like, adults historically have not been that way, like, you will glom onto as the, like, hi, new best friend, you're on my side, right?
True. But also, like, at this point, Harry's only had one conversation with Fudge. And he's only seen the man twice.
And in that conversation, Fudge did not throw him into Azkaban, but, like, had tea and crumpets with him. Like,
True.
Why wouldn't he think he's besties with Fudge? You know what? I don't think Harry's out of line here.
Okay.
To be fair, this is like the bare minimum from Fudge. Like, not throwing a child out of school and locking them into prison is, like, for unintentional magic, yeah, that is the bare minimum, Fudge. You should not be getting credit for this.
No, but, like, remember, we talked a lot about this on the Prisoner of Azkaban 3 chapter episode, where Harry's like, oh, I blew up my aunt. I guess I'm getting thrown into Azkaban, like, for life for that. Like, you know, Harry's perspective of, like, what the bad response and what the good response could be to that event is very, very skewed. So, like, in his mind, like, Fudge did him a huge solid here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fudge also, though, I mean, even in that conversation, tries to avoid saying that the reason that they want Harry safe is because of Sirius. So I think it is slightly like, yeah, maybe Harry thinks that Fudge is his new best friend, but I think it is still slightly presumptuous for Harry to think that Fudge is going to go into any more detail with him when he was even trying to avoid the detail that he gave.
Yeah, sure. So what about the other two?
So with Mr. Weasley, I know we sort of can assume he knows something, but I'm not sure he actually knows the full story, or if there is not more sort of a blanket statement that was released within the ministry to other ministry employees of there's a risk that Sirius is going after Harry, but they don't actually know the background.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think Mr. Weasley was not a member of the Order of the Phoenix before the war, or before in the First Wizarding War. I don't think he has all the information. I don't, like, Madam, what's her name? That runs the Three Broomsticks. I should know this. She doesn't know either.
Rose Murda.
Yeah, she doesn't know either. And I don't think it's general knowledge. Like, I don't think everyone knows that Sirius Black was the Godfather. Why would they?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think this is actually a really good case of staying within Harry's perspective, because we obviously are like, but Mr. Weasley doesn't know, so huh? Whereas for Harry, at 13 and emotionally charged, he's like, well, they're the grown-ups who know things, and Arthur is very clearly a grown-up who knows things, because Arthur knew about Sirius Black, that he's after Harry and all of that. Like, and then there's the people who don't. So, like, I think Harry isn't quite picking up the nuances there.
That's true.
Yeah, no, adults know everything, obviously.
Well, at this point, he still kind of thinks
as
that.
an adult, I can confirm.
I wish.
Yeah, the last person that he mentions is Hagrid, and that's a fair question on Harry's part.
Even I have to give you this point. Like, I wrote my notes and I was like, oh god, Evan's gonna love my notes. I mean, we know Hagrid is not great with keeping secrets, and Hagrid is the one that gives Harry the photos. Yeah. So
No, Oreo, I'm not saying that Hagrid should have told him. I'm saying it's fair for Harry to ask why he did it.
Oh, yeah. But I'm almost
Yeah.
thinking, like, Hagrid knows something at least. Like, he definitely knows Sirius, and he knows that Sirius and his parents were friends. I'm more surprised that Hagrid hasn't told Harry anything.
Mm-hmm. That he hasn't let it slip at this point.
Yeah. Because Hagrid is the one that gets the photos, so...
Right.
There was an opportunity to have a conversation around it.
Mm-hmm. And who was in those photos?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that Harry, like, didn't look through the photos and being like, so who all is here? Like, who's this dude at the wedding?
Mm-hmm.
But Harry is notorious for not looking at his gifts. Like, there's a certain mirror he was given that he never opened.
Oh my god. That is very, very true, Tavi.
Oh my gosh.
The boy is oblivious.
Yes.
He really is.
It's true.
Like, I doubt he took a cursory glance through the album when he got it and put it at the bottom of his trunk and forgot it. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Oh, poor kid.
So, I really like going through them one by one, but I also think, like, on a macro scale, like, why sort of no one told him. Because, like, we can explain away each one, but bigger picture, I think it makes perfect sense not to have told him. And I'm thinking from Dumbledore's perspective, but also Hagrid's and, like, really everyone's. When Harry entered the Wizarding World, right, he had the potential to have a lot of issues with, like, friends and friendship and, you know, all of that. Because he's famous, right? And fame can be really, really isolating. And all it would really take is a few people to, you know, cozy up to him for the wrong reasons, to use him as famous Harry Potter or whatever, to just create a total mistrust of people on his part. And we know he didn't have any friends growing up because of Dudley's gang. Everyone was afraid to be friends with him. And so basically, this kid's coming into Hogwarts, famous as all hell, and without any history of making friends. And I think it's fair to assume that, you know, Dumbledore and Hagrid and everyone wanted him to have friends, that they're very much invested in Harry having a support network. So in light of that, perhaps leading with, your parents died because their best friend betrayed them, thought you should know, like, wouldn't be what you open with. And, like, it's only been 2 years since then, so I can see why no one would tell Harry about this.
That does make sense, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's also an uncomfortable conversation to have. I mean, Hagrid does the whole, hey, like, didn't you know your parents were murdered? But then I think there's also, I think, a bit of an assumption going on genuinely from people who don't know Harry very well, that he probably knows more than he does. Because I don't think a lot of people, A, know where he's been his whole childhood, and B, how, you know, clueless he is about the Wizarding World.
Yeah, like, this might be a movieism, but, like, you know, Ron's line in Sorcerer's Stone where, like, he's like, Hermione knows more about you than you do.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, doesn't everyone? And I'm like, that's accurate and weird.
Yeah, I bet that Harry occurs in multiple of his own textbooks throughout school. Like,
Oh, yeah.
There could be a reason why he hates history of magic. It's like navel gazing.
Yeah. If they ever get rid of bins, right, can you imagine how weird it would be for, like, you know, James and Albus and Lily to be in History of Magic, like, learning about their dad?
Well, I'm sure at some point descendants are learning about, you know, the Battle of Hogwarts and everybody who is a part of that. So it has to happen at some point. I don't know. I feel like it would be cool.
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna say.
I feel like I think maybe grandchildren and on, it would be cool. Kids, you tend to be embarrassed of your parents, even if they're really awesome. So I feel like the one generation would be like, so uncomfortable. No. But then everybody else from there, like if I was in a history class and I was like, oh, we're learning about something that my grandparent did or my great grandparent or something. I'd be like, that's super cool. Unless they did something awful, which that would be really awkward. but in this case, they're doing cool things. So you would think at some point people would like learning about that, even if they're related to them. But yeah, I definitely think, you know, Albus and everybody are a little probably awkward about it. And it's I'm going to hide my face in my book until this lecture is over.
Right. And just like, for homework, I'm going to go talk to Dad over dinner. And yeah.
That'd be a good cheat, though.
Right. Primary sources. Mm-hmm. They're where it's at.
It could also be exploited by the teacher of being like, could you just ask your dad to join us for a lesson?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that would be cool.
Not so much for Harry, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He doesn't like talking about himself, so. But you could get Ron.
Oh my god, hell yeah. Yeah, like
This is my uncle Ron.
Yeah, he was also there.
Oh god.
Mm-hmm. He did some cool stuff. He pretended he spoke parcel tongue.
I mean, Neville's a professor, so he's on site.
Yeah. Oh, they
Very
totally
true.
have Neville come in for like one history class every year and just like tell them all about Dumbledore's army.
And then he gets rained with questions during biology.
Herbology.
Classes. Herbology, yeah.
But you know, it's a really interesting thing to ponder at the sort of top of the chapter.
Yeah.
Or you had something else you were pondering.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, in come the Weasley twins with the distraction by setting off dung bombs in their own common room. Like, why would you do that? I get setting it off elsewhere, but not also where you live.
I think of Weasley. The Weasley twins are frat boys. They do random stuff on impulse. They don't necessarily ponder the consequences, or they think that the consequences are funny enough that it's fine. So that's kind of how I look at basically everything that they do, until they have their own shop and are buckling down a little bit. But basically everything that they do is just like, wouldn't this be funny? Or how fun would this be? Or I feel like doing this today. And then they do it. And that's kind of as far as their thought process gets them, until they're like, we could make money off this stuff. Yeah. So I think that's kind of why they would do it, is because they felt like it.
Yeah. I mean,
or they were dared to.
No, I can confirm that as 15-year-old teenage boys, nothing would be funnier.
Yeah. They, like Harry, lack impulse control.
Yes.
Harry wants to attack Sirius Black, and they think that dung bombs in their own common room is a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, just think about, for a 15-year-old, farts are like the most hilarious thing on the planet, and dung bombs are basically just like like a fart in a bottle. So
I guess. Yep. I still don't really want to be in the Gryffindor common room with the Weasley twins, I think.
Well, Oreo, none of the rest of us want to be in the Gryffindor common room either, so we're right there with you.
That's true.
Well, I'm okay with being there other times. I just don't want the twins also there.
They should really be bouncing them off the door to the Slytherin common room. That's where it should be. Obviously.
Yes.
That would be funny if it was just in the corridor.
Just waiting for someone to come out. Like, if they open the door, it will go in, and we're going to keep trying.
Yeah. See, if I were them, I would put it under the Slytherin table in the Great Hall.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm thinking about that spell they used against Quirrell in Philosopher's Stone to bounce the snowballs out the back of his head.
Yes.
If you just do that to the Slytherin door, the moment they open it, the dung bomb is going to go in, right?
Yep.
There you
Perfection.
go. Exactly.
Right there. That's the answer.
Someone's been a 15-year-old boy.
Well, most boys have.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the answer to why Harry never sees McGonagall in the common room. Maybe McGonagall used to be there more frequently, but since the twins started school, she's like, nope, can't deal with the smell.
There's two blips there. No teachers in the common room when the original trio are at school and when Fred and George are at school.
Yup.
Avoid the menace of Sirius, James, and Lupin, and avoid the menace of Fred and George. And the smell that comes with it.
And I like to think avoiding the mess of James Potter II. Because he would also raise hell.
Oh, God.
Very true.
Clearly.
But Harry doesn't want to spend time in that common room either and runs up to go look at that, at the photo book. And Oreo, you brought up a good point about Harry. He's had these photos. We kind of touched on it already, that he just is not inquisitive enough. But
I mean, there's sort of almost a throwaway line mentioned in the first book of Hagrid being like, here's some photos, thought you would like them. And this is probably the first time we're looking at them more closely as the reader.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's had a whole year, and, you know, he's still friends with Hagrid. It's not like that source has dried up. And then also now there's Lupin in the picture. I get that at this point in time, Harry and Lupin are not close enough, but wouldn't Lupin also be in one of those pictures?
That's what I would have thought, especially since there's clearly photos of being at the wedding, and if Sirius is in it, you have to imagine Lupin's there too. You know, I think I have two like kind of things here. Hagrid gets these photos by asking their old school friends. Who? Who are these friends? Why have none of them tried to ever reach out to Harry in all of these years? Like, okay, fine. When he's at the Dursleys, they didn't know where he was. They didn't know how to contact him, whatever. But he's been at Hogwarts for 2 years now, and they just never thought to be like, hey, I'm friends with your parents. If you need anything, let me know, or whatever. And, you know, it's like, okay, Black's in Azkaban. Lupin is a werewolf, so probably off, maybe unreachable a little bit, but Hagrid knows who he is. So I would assume that, like, because they have the love of Dumbledore in common, that he'd probably be able to get photos from Lupin, I would assume. Pettigrew's presumed dead. And we don't know about any other friends that they may have had other than, like, the people who are in the Order, again, most of which are dead. So who is he getting these photos from? Why don't we know who they are?
Dumbledore.
But he said old school friends, though. Dumbledore wouldn't have pictures of them from school.
We can assume Lily had friends, though. I mean, we only know about James and his friends, but
true.
Yeah,
we can assume Lily had friends.
So. I mean, also they don't have to be like ride or die best friends to like have a photo of them, right?
That's true.
Yeah, a class photo. Everyone in the year is part of it.
Yeah,
things like that. I think it's also worth mentioning that the oldest, like the photos where they are oldest, and of course where Lupin and Sirius are oldest, is when they're 21. So Lupin is what, 32, 33?
33, yeah.
He could quite literally be unrecognizable in those pictures. Like, there's no reason to believe that a decade living as a werewolf is going to be nice to your appearance in the long run. Like, I think he might look as haggard as Sirius. There's no reason to think that, like, Sirius and Lupin look anything like what they did at 21.
It also makes sense that, like, Lupin wouldn't be in the photos in the album because, like, you know, Hagrid asked for photos of Lily and James, and the people who would have photos of Lupin along with them are Lupin himself, who probably is like, no, don't look at me, and Sirius, who's in Azkaban, and Pettigrew, who's presumed dead, and, yeah, like, you know, I think it kind of makes sense we didn't get a Marauder group shot in the album, however appropriate one would have been.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
When did Pettigrew's mom die? Because we know she was alive at least until the end of the war, since she received the Order of Merlin and the Finger. She might have a bunch of things, and of course Pettigrew, at least when he was a student, was a massive fan. So he could have been like the Colin Creevy of his friend group.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that.
Like the one with the camera, like... Mm-hmm. Maybe we shouldn't defame Colin like that, but...
I mean, but it could be that Hagrid, like, didn't reach out to the mom in question, or that she's kicked it by now. Like, it's hard to say.
Or maybe Dumbledore is intercepting Harry's mail. It's like, nope, no contact with anyone who's nice to you.
Rude.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Wouldn't it, though?
Well, for Dumbledore.
Yeah, Dumbledore does...
Not for Harry's mail to get intercepted.
Yeah. Fair.
And it would be the first time for Dumbledore. He did stop the letters in the 5th book as well, right?
No.
Over the summer.
No. That summer he just told everyone to not write anything sensitive.
Still meddling, but less bad. Ish.
And then we have a line here from Harry where he's remembering what that conversation he's overheard, where he's thinking, but the Dementors don't affect him. And this is a classic little hint drop of Sirius actually being innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think also it's like him being innocent, but also that there is potentially something different about him. Because Harry could be, I mean, Harry's innocent, but the Dementors affect him and he's not locked in Azkaban with them. So, you know, I think it's potentially a bigger hint about him being an animagus and like not quite human. Because I think at some points too, they even talk about like he looks inhuman in his like face or something like that when in one of the like when he's looking at a Daily Prophet article or something. So it's one of those like, there's something else going on here and we don't really know.
Yeah, it's an interesting question about how like Dementors affect animals versus humans. And like that's, I believe, if we're getting at here is that Sirius spent his entire time in Azkaban, unless being inspected, as a dog because it was more bearable.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows?
Yeah, I also thought. You know, he goes on to saying he doesn't have to hear my mom screaming if they get too close. And that struck me as just maybe a little odd. Like, Harry seems to have an interesting view on what someone would hear if Dementors are around them. It just came across that way to me. And because if Sirius is really working for Voldemort, Lily's death wouldn't be his worst memory. And also wouldn't even be something he could hear because he wasn't there for it. Although he was there pretty quick after. So I guess you could maybe argue that, oh, he was lurking around or something, or he was there when it happened. But it still wouldn't be like his worst memory if he was actually working for Voldemort. So it just seems odd that that's Harry's like go-to of he doesn't have to hear my mom screaming.
So I read it differently. I don't think it's literal. I don't think Harry means that, like, you know, he would expect Sirius to hear that. It's more Harry saying he doesn't hurt the way I hurt when Dementors come nearby. Like, he doesn't hear his mother dying the way I do. He doesn't experience the pain that I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that interpretation. I was actually found it interesting to think, what would Sirius actually hear? And I was kind of thinking it might be the confrontation with Pettigrew, his like the regret and the angst over being like, I failed my friends. So his worst memory might actually be very close to Harry's anyway.
Yeah, it might be when he went to Godric's Hollow and like saw the house destroyed and Harry in the rubble and all of that.
Probably. And then not being able to take Harry.
Yes.
Yeah, so his worst memory could be Harry crying.
Mm.
Oh, I like that.
I like that a lot.
A little bit of inception there. That would be the worst experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be.
I feel like that's such a good question for characters. Like, you know how everyone is always asking, like, oh, what would so-and-so see in the Mirror of Erised? I'm like, I want to know what they hear when the Dementors come by. Like...
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
That's almost a more personal question as well.
True.
Like, what are you most, like, scared... Maybe not scared of, but, like, what's your worst memory?
Yeah. I mean, no, I would ask that of fictional people, not real ones, because that's f***ed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like, it's basically that.
Let's do introductions, your Hogwarts house, your Dementor memory.
What is your Boggart?
I mean, Boggart I do. Boggart's not quite as personal. Because, you know, like, my Boggart is spiders. Like, there's not that much to it.
Yeah. And of course, like, fears can be irrational.
Mm-hmm.
Like... Which could be a fun way to deal with Boggarts, to having some weird rational fear. Like poor people with like specific phobias, like the fear of long words would be a really interesting one.
Oh gosh, which in and of itself is a long word.
Yeah.
Cool. So Harry's done being sad and falls asleep, and is more sad in his sleep, but also his subconscious is
also sad.
Picking up that, that like in his dream he's picturing Pettigrew to look a bit like Neville. I was like comparing Neville. So I was sort of wondering, why do we think that is happening? Because I think there's a couple of reasons, but potentially.
Yeah. I think one of them is just, I think they're described in the books as being a little bit more similar looking, just they're more like round and they're like a tag along almost to a more like powerful group of people. So that's kind of why that Harry probably thinks of himself and Ron and Hermione as the James, Sirius, Lupin, and so then in his mind, like Neville is like the Peter of his friend group, basically, which is pretty sad.
Yeah, the fourth wheel.
Yeah. So honestly, this really took off in the fandom. Like the theories of like, you know, Neville sort of being the Peter Pettigrew of his generation, like it was so prevalent that Jo actually had to debunk the rumor on her website. So on her website, she had a rumor section and she put the rumor that Neville is Pettigrew's son. And her only response was, "How dare you?"
Yes.
Well, I do appreciate that.
Yes. And, of course, Neville being Pettigrew's son is a ridiculous theory because, obviously, his actual son lives in Privet Drive. Now, whether his son is Pierce Pocus or Dudley is, of course, up for a hearty discussion that we're going to have one day, probably not today.
We need a few more butterbeers to get there.
Listen, I have receipts, I have essays, and I have evidence.
Who's surprised? Not me.
Nope. Yeah.
Irvin has essays. What?
Yeah. Actually, not mine on that topic. I have someone else's essays.
I'm still not surprised.
That's fair.
You're just a walking, like, library about Harry Potter essays. So.
Yes, I am. That's what I want my epitaph to be. Here lies a library of Harry Potter essays.
That sounds fun. I like it.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So, I think that the Pettigrew Neville comparison makes sense in Harry's subconscious. And it ties into one of the central themes of the series, which is that sort of each generation gets it more and more right. And in so many ways, Harry's generation is an improvement upon what went down in the Marauders generation, and I just feel like Neville being a lovable badass is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Neville is almost like what Peter could have been then.
Yes.
Like, Peter had the opportunity and the potential to be, like, at least partially the hero of the story, and Neville really takes that and runs with it, but Pettigrew, fails the Gryffindor test of being the brave one.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a little bit.
And then staying on the dream.
Yeah, so he then goes further into sad memories. And it goes back to that same, like, laughing shrilly, same laugh that Harry heard inside his head whenever the Dementors drew near. And maybe it's just the way it's worded, but I was like, does he truly not connect the dots and know that this voice is Voldemort?
He definitely
he
does.
Has connected it. Yeah. I mean, even once he wakes up, he goes, when he's talking to Ron and Hermione about it, he says that, he hears his mom being murdered by Voldemort. Like, he knows that that's the situation that he's hearing. And I feel like, Harry is dense, but I feel like he can't be that dense.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's a much more ominous way of putting it. Like, right, fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself. I feel like rather than say, like, and then Harry heard Voldemort laughing, like, the way it's said here, like, and then came another voice, laughing shrilly, the same laugh that Harry heard inside his head when the Dementors draw near. Like, that's just better writing, honestly. And it's nice because not only does Harry know, Joe trusts the reader to be paying enough attention to put that together, which I think is really good.
Yeah.
But eventually, Harry wakes up. The sad dream's over.
Yep.
And we get a lot of really nice interactions with Ron and Hermione being very concerned for Harry.
Yes. And I love this. I love this scene so much. It just dives so deep into their dynamic as a trio, and it's great. So first, Harry could tell they had rehearsed this conversation while he had been asleep. And this is great because it's the first of several moments that I can recall where where Ron and Hermione are rehearsing how to handle Harry. Like, they also do this in Order of the Phoenix, where, like, Harry comes to Grimmauld Place and they're like, oh no, he's reacted the way we thought he'd react. Like, flip to page 4 in your script. And, like, it's fair because, honestly, like, Harry is great and all, but being Harry's friend can be a lot sometimes. And, like, yeah, you kind of want to, like, talk it out about, like, how are we going to do this? Like, you got to be sensitive.
Yeah, like, he is hearing things. The walls are talking to him. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Bit of pressure there.
Yeah. And also, let's appreciate the irony that the chapter begins with, like, Ron and Hermione putting on such a united front, where, like, it's literally the two of them being like, Harry, we care about you. And then it ends with their worst fight ever. So, yeah, they go on a real journey in this chapter.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, at least, even though I haven't seen any of the movies in many, many years, they still, like, are so, like, present in my mind that it's really refreshing reading scenes like this and being like, oh no, Ron is actually, like, full of solid advice and he's just being a really good friend because, in the movies he's just, like, also there and that's it for most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Ron is fantastic in this scene. Like, okay, y'all know I don't think very highly of Ron, like, in general. This has come up a lot. But, like, he is excellent in this scene. Like, honestly, he's so much more effective than Hermione in this scene. Because, like, as Harry is, like, building up a head of steam of the, like, he killed my parents. Like, Ron is talking it out with Harry. Like, he's asking him questions. He's, like, giving Harry the space to, like, talk through it and, like, come to his own conclusions. Hermione's, like, more heavy-handed. She's too eager to have it settled. So Hermione's like, you mustn't go doing anything stupid. There's nothing you can do. Like, Harry doesn't want to kill anyone. And I'm like, Hermione means well, and she's saying, like, correct things, but, like, people, particularly emotionally charged Gryffindors in their teenage years, aren't likely to respond well to this. Like, Ron is sort of giving Harry the space to, like, cool off and make his own decisions not to kill Sirius, and I feel like it's a lot better. And, like, this is going to be a recurring theme in this chapter. Like, Ron is really, like, at some of his best in this chapter.
Yeah.
Ron is, well, Hermione's an only child, and Ron has an unreasonable number of brothers. So negotiating between Fred and George and all the others might be something he's used to.
This is true.
Like, talking Fred off a cliff might be something he's had to do a couple times. Possibly in the literal sense of that. Like, Fred's like, I am going to jump and it's going to be fine. And I think you get my meaning.
And that's a whole family of emotional Gryffindors.
Yeah, and Hermione is a only child.
Yeah.
And also, I think this whole book is about Hermione struggling with the, insane workload she put on herself. And I think this is one of the many examples where we're seeing that, because of that, she is not present. She's trying to do too many things at once. And, even in that scene while she's having this conversation, Harry says when he comes into the common room, she's surrounded by books and she's clearly working. So I think even at this conversation, Harry probably doesn't get 100% of her.
Yeah. It's also the fact that, like, Hermione's not great at interpersonal relationships, like, early on. Like, we forget this because as the years go by, she, like, laps Harry and Ron in emotional maturity several times. And sort of, by the time Goblet of Fire rolls around, and she's the, like, or no, like, by the time Order of the Phoenix rolls around, and she's like, well, honestly, don't you know how Cho Chang is feeling? It's so obvious.
Right.
But like, this is still early on Hermione where, like, she's still kind of new at, like, making friends and navigating people her own age who aren't as brilliant as her.
Yeah.
I think it's also very interesting for me every time I go back to this, because I think the later books are sort of more present in my mind than, like, the earlier books. And then you go back to, like, a book of, like, Prisoner of Azkaban and, like, Hermione, but really, I think all of them, but mostly Hermione is talking about this and being like, they're still so believing and trusting into the, like, the justice system and, like, the whole, like, everything's still, like, black and white. They haven't figured out that that's not how the world works. And boy, oh boy, they have a journey ahead of them.
Yeah. They do. It's really sweet, and it's also really sad how wrong they are.
Especially that once they go talk to Hagrid in just a bit, Hagrid's like immediately is like, yeah, bribery is a thing that is just happening.
And blackmail.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to threaten the Board of Governors until they do what I tell them to do.
I feel like it's a big leap, logically, from, like, the justice system works and there are isolated incidents and issues with it, to, like, no, it just doesn't work. Like, the system is messed up. And, you do need a lot of examples for that to set in. Like, you shouldn't assume a thing is completely broken the first time you see something go wrong. So, like, I get where they're coming from, and yeah, like, ooh, what a journey it is.
Yeah, and I mean, I would assume most of us have been on this journey at, roughly the same age.
Oh, yeah.
Because you do, you grow up, you think, adults have figured everything out, know everything. I've already said I can prove that point. But also you do have a much more purer view of the world of, if people do something wrong, they are convicted, or like they get their due punishment or whatever it may be. And then you, like, get older and you figure out, oh, it's so much more difficult, and this is just not how anything works.
Yep.
Which is, I think, part of what makes the whole book so great, that, we as the generation who grew up with them and were aging with the books we went on similar journeys in real life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot that, like, the Wizarding World is kind of frozen in time. I think, like, when they separated from the rest of the world in 1692, like, they really, like, left things there, and that includes, like, the democratic institutions. So, like, they haven't really developed, you know, a consistent and, like, balanced rule of law because, well, clearly, they really haven't really done that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's also an interesting introduction to this whole thing, because really this is the first book where we're learning more about the government and the justice system, because we haven't really touched upon this in the first two books, and why would we? We have briefly had mentions of Azkaban and because Hagrid gets sent there, but this is really where we drill into all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yet
Expanding
they all
the
go
world.
and work for the government.
Yeah.
Well, it's the change it from the inside theory, I think.
Let's hope that Kingsley did a good job before they got there.
Yeah. I would think, I would imagine so. We'll get there.
I mean, at this point in time, Harry and Fudge are best friends.
Exactly.
You know, I think we get the mentions of Hagrid going to Azkaban, and Hermione is so shocked because she's like, well, you were innocent. And, you know, Hagrid's response is, think that matters to them? They don't care. And I think that that's really interesting, especially when you're comparing it to the only other person we really know who's been to Azkaban, which is Sirius. And Sirius says that part of what kept him sane when he was there is that he knew he was innocent, and it wasn't a happy thing, so the Dementors couldn't take it away from him. And, you know, obviously Hagrid's only there for a few weeks, I think it is, or potentially months maybe. And Sirius is there for 12 years. But I have to wonder if the knowledge that Hagrid was innocent would help him hold on to himself in the long run, or if he's too emotional and wouldn't like think to dwell on his innocence like Sirius would. I just am not sure how exactly that would. I have to imagine it would help. But then also, like, the Dementor, you know, he says that the Dementors weren't keen on letting him go. And I also have to wonder, is that the Dementors' reaction to everyone who's in there because they wouldn't want to let anybody go because it's their food source? Or does Hagrid's particular zest for life and general happiness make him extra delicious?
I think there's more to consider here because, you know, I think due to Sirius's upbringing, he's maybe not as bothered about being trapped in, you know, a cell, versus Hagrid basically lives outdoors most of the time, and is just roaming in like the forest, is looking after beasts, it's all of that.
As Umbridge
so
would say, as gamekeeper,
him.
fresh air must be so hard to come by.
Exactly.
I think there's also an interesting aspect here that we get into. I think Sirius gets into this in book. I don't know where he gets into it, but he talks about him like kind of feeling that even though he didn't betray the Potters, that he's still at fault. So part of him believes that I deserve this punishment.
Yeah.
Like, it's my fault they're dead. I might not have actively chosen to betray them to Voldemort, but it was my decision that in the long run led to them dying, so yeah, I deserve this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because, yeah, since that's not a happy thought, like, he would stew in that for a long time.
Yeah. Which would make him a very unattractive meal.
But I think the Dementors just aren't keen on letting anyone go. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think they're particularly fussy about, like, how delicious people are, you know? A soul's a soul. I also think, like, bringing all of this up at this point in the book is really well done on Joe's part, because this sort of, like, introduces the idea, right, that, like, it's not just a question of innocent and guilty, that, like, sometimes innocent people are chucked in Azkaban. You know, hint, hint, wink, wink, like a certain Sirius Black.
Wait, are you serious?
I am, but
had to be done at least once.
It did.
Oh God, the most predictable and worst pun of the book.
Yeah, there was an essay online counting the number of times the word "serious" comes up, like serious as in I'm serious, and it is like triple in Prisoner of Azkaban because we like puns.
My head is literally in my hands. One thing I was thinking though is that why do you get sent directly to Azkaban as a suspect? Is there no concept of, like, jail? Like,
nope.
Held in a cell at the Ministry of Magic for
a
few months before being sent to Azkaban when you're actually guilty?
Nope. Azkaban is jail. Like, I'm pretty sure if you're flying a broomstick under the influence, you get sent to Azkaban for a day.
I think they're also very loose on the, do we really want to investigate if someone's guilty?
Well, yeah, clearly, yeah.
I mean, they don't really do anything with Sirius. They're like, you were on the scene, so good enough. Go to Azkaban, rest of your life.
Do not pass go. Do not collect.
For me,
yeah, exactly.
The whole, one is the time turners, which comes up in this book as well. The other massive issue for me is Veritaserum. Like, if you're going to force people to tell the truth. Anyway, yeah. That is a tangent and a half.
Yeah. I mean, Jo addressed that. She said that Veritaserum is fallible, that, you can use occlumency against it, or, you tell what you believe is the truth. All the people who saw Sirius and Peter's face-off would say under Veritaserum that, I saw Sirius Black blow up Peter Pettigrew.
That's very true. I mean, it's just like the tests that we have. They can be foiled and
the polygraph tests.
Accurate. Yeah, polygraphs. They're not technically admissible in court, I believe, because they're not 100% like a guarantee, because there's so many tricks of fudging it. No pun intended.
It's going to be a very punny podcast. I like it.
Apparently. But also, I mean, they're going to Hagrid's and getting all this information about, this justice system, which is really encapsulated in the in the Hippogriff trial and all their subsequent research into it. And I did find it kind of funny when they're talking about Buckbeak and saying that I just love the idea that the only pet of Hagrid's that actually gets in trouble for hurting somebody is also the only one that's described as positively cute.
Yep.
And it's like, where's this committee for the disposal of dangerous creatures when the forest is right there and all the things that are in it? You have to assume Snape isn't going to go running to them about Fluffy, because he knows how important Fluffy is to keeping the stones safe. But they're not mentioned as being involved in trying to get Aragog, even though they have to have known that he was in the castle or that he existed, because Hagrid gets expelled because of him. So it's like, where are they? What are they doing? They're not going to stop in Acromantula, but they're going to get all upset about, Buckbeak. Obviously, bribery and blackmail aside.
Yep.
But this led me down a slight rabbit hole into just looking at what the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures was and what where it came from.
Ooh,
it's been around since
rabbit hole.
I know. It's been around since at least 1296, because that's one of the dates that they bring up when they're doing their research. About a manticore, I believe is that one. It's part of the Beast Division in the Department of the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. And what I found interesting is that the Beast Division was created in 1811. So at some point, the committee existed for, at least 600 or I guess 500 years. The committee existed separately from that. And then the department itself, there's not a specific date, but it's at least before 1750, because that's when the statute of secrecy was extended to include the concealment of the native magical species. And so I just think it's interesting that it seems like this committee existed far beyond, like far before any other regulatory department dealing with creatures. I think this would have been fun to have Newt just appear and be all upset, because I feel like this committee is the exact opposite of everything that he stands for.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense that it would predate, like, all the other departments, right? Because, like, I feel like most of the departments are concerned with hiding the Fantastic Beasts, which you didn't have to do until the 18th century.
Right.
Right. Whereas disposing of dangerous creatures, no, that's a perennial job.
Right. But then also, I mean, yeah, and then you have the separation of the beast, spirit, and what's the third? What's the
Beings.
third division? Beings. That's it. Right. The obvious one is the one that I missed. Yeah, beasts, beings, and spirits, which I think is interesting. But it's also, I mean, it bothers me that this committee is still around with all the other, like, all the other departments and divisions and everything that is there to basically make it so that you don't necessarily have a need for this committee, one would assume, if everybody else is doing their job.
Yeah, it's also ironic that this is the one that handles, like, the cases. Like, the committee for the disposal for dangerous creatures should be the one that's brought in after the case is handled, not the actual adjudicator of the case itself. That seems like
conflict of interest.
Cart before the horse, a little bit. And yeah, conflict of interest, absolutely. There's also the fact that, like, hippogriff baiting is an actual thing.
Awful.
So, like, clearly people know that hippogriffs do not like when you insult them or you misbehave. Like, if there's a term for this,
yeah, that's right.
Maybe they should have some awareness of how to behave and not sentence hippogriffs to death for their
doing what they do.
Basic behavior. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Doing what they do. It's ridiculous.
I think it's more understandable now for me after, we've all went through COVID and seen how people can behave when they don't understand basics of how vaccines work, that sort of stuff. Where, this is the same case of, like, the wizarding world is so, like, everything's evil and beasts and we don't want to know anything about them, versus if they understood some of them more, they would actually be fine. And this is a prime example of, like, hippogriffs can be really dangerous, but equally, if you know how to treat them or how to behave around them, you can also just be fine and coexist.
Yeah.
But hey, the world isn't black and white. We've already mentioned this,
So, let's talk about Ron again. And this is excellent. So, Hagrid's all emotional about Buckbeak, and, shall I make a cup of tea, said Ron. It's what my mom does when someone's upset. And, like, first of all, Ron Weasley walked so Sheldon Cooper could run on The Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
Like...
But he will never be singing Soft Kitty. He hates that cat.
You know what? I would not put it past him. Not in this book, but later, once he and Crookshanks are besties, I can totally see Ron going for Soft Kitty.
To be fair, even in this book, just at the end of this book, when he, like, gets Pigwidgeon, and he's like grabs Crookshanks, is like, is this one okay?
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, what do you think of Pigwidgeon, Soft Kitty, Warm Kitty, little ball of fur?
He's also going to have to get used to Crookshanks at some point, because Crookshanks is not gone after they graduate.
No.
Yeah. How long do magical cats live?
They
gotta
can
be
go,
a long time.
like, I think 15 years, no problem.
I mean, that's even just a lot of regular cats, not even magical ones.
Exactly. Normal cats just...
Yeah.
Outlives Ron.
Yeah.
There's regular cats that turned 30, so...
Damn!
Yeah.
Yeah, cats do have 9 lives.
They really do.
But yeah, no, Ron is so great in this chapter. Like, honestly, it's a sound strategy for comforting someone. Like, yes, make them a cup of tea. Like, it makes me feel better. I did have a thought, like, why didn't Ron offer Harry a hot beverage when Harry was upset earlier that day? But then I thought about it, I was like, no, because when Harry comes down to the common room, Ron said he was coming to wake Harry for lunch, which would have included a cup of tea. So no, Ron is on top of his cups of tea here.
Yeah, very true.
Comfort food and Ron just goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Ron is comfort food. Embodied.
And this is the man with the emotional intelligence of a teaspoon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But he had a good mom who taught him at least that.
He did.
So,
like, I love seeing this throughout the series. Like, the things that the Weasley kids, like, learned and then, like, internalized from their parents. Like, I think about this a lot when we look at Fred and George in the early books, the way they just completely adopt Harry. Like, sort of, Ron becomes besties with Harry, but Fred and George, too, within, like, 10 minutes of knowing Harry, they're like, hi, you're ours now. You're part of the family. We're ride or die for you.
Yeah.
And, like, Ron does frequent callbacks to a lot of what Molly does. Like, there's this thing with the cups of tea. There's also Goblet of Fire when Rita Skeeter's article comes out, and Ron is like, Hermione, she's making you out to be a Scarlet Woman. It's what my mom calls them. Like, I love this. I love this so much.
Yeah, it's really adorable.
Yeah.
It's actually quite interesting that they are so, like, considering most of the year they don't actually see their parents once they go to school. She definitely had a strong impression on them on their first, 10 years of their life, first 11 years of their life.
Well, yeah, but that's because, like, they were homeschooled by her, right? So, like, it would have been a lot of quality time. And, like, especially, like, the last 2 years, like, once all the other kids were off at school, and it was just, like, Molly, Ron, and Ginny at home. Like, yeah, lots of quality time.
True.
It must have been so quiet at the Burrow without the twins.
Yeah. Yes, it must have.
Well, they did have, what's it called? A ghoul in the attic, so I'm sure.
A ghoul in the attic, yep.
Yeah, so
yeah, but he just,
anyway.
clanks pipes and all that.
Yeah.
Cozy. Practically tame by comparison.
Mm-hmm. And the most tame flobberworms.
Oh, God.
They just crack me up that they even exist. I mean, I feel like it's literally just like a worm. And the fact that they eat themselves to death on lettuce. Just Hagrid.
Yeah.
Of
How
all
do you
things to go
possibly
out on.
force feed enough lettuce to something that it dies? And what creature, like, just doesn't stop eating? I mean, I guess my dog would probably never stop eating if we'd let her eat everything she wanted, but like, what?
But also, like, why are flobberworms a magical creature? Like, I feel like if the wizards let muggles know about flobberworms, like, the world would keep spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to know more about them. Why are they not just worms? What makes them flobber?
Yeah, that's a good point actually about keeping them secret, because
What makes them flubber?
yeah, also that. But I reckon it's almost easier to keep a dragon secret because it's so big, ironically. But then, like, a worm, like, how do you keep track of all the worms everywhere and that no muggle has, met any of them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm like, that's breaking my brain right now.
So this is me. I think the point where we get to when it comes to keeping flobberworm secret might be that if somebody goes around talking about them, you just obliviate them. But otherwise, you don't do it.
Maybe that's where Tremors and Dune come from. It's just a flobberworm that continued to eat lettuce until it grew to the size of a building.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, of all things to die from, could you not pick something better than lettuce, like apples, or like something that, like, at least tastes good?
Right.
Like, lettuce is like the most boring way to go
lettuce,
out.
yeah.
Lettuce is good, but if I'm going to die from overeating something, it's not going to be lettuce.
It ain't going to be lettuce.
Also true.
I mean, we named a pastry after our king that ate himself to death, Otto Fredrik. He ate himself to death on semla, which is great. Now there's a Otto Fredrik bakelse, which is named after him because he was a big fatty who couldn't stop eating.
Amazing.
Not great king either, but you know. Win some, lose some.
Yeah. So, you know, we are not fans of flobberworms, but Harry, Ron, and Hermione are like, oh my god, yeah, Hagrid, like, we love your classes, you know, feeding lettuce to the flobberworms. Yeah, so great, so great. And I found it interesting that Ron crosses his fingers under the table when he lies to Hagrid about liking his classes. And, like, this is just so wholesome.
It's really adorable. I mean, it's just so much of, like, him really truly caring for Hagrid, which, like, Harry's connection with Hagrid is obvious because Hagrid's the one who introduced him to the magical world and brings him away from the Dursleys and everything, and that starts that whole thing. But then Ron just, like, immediately, like, yeah, Hagrid's also my friend too. Cool. And
yeah,
like, Harry and Ron have to Harry and Ron have to seriously care about Hagrid too, if they're willing to go, like, almost immediately to the library to do research for him. I mean, I will say they do slack off later after the fight with Hermione, so they get kind of half credit. But still, like, they go straight there and start researching, you know, all these different court, like, cases with magical creatures and if they were ever released and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Hagrid's almost like a grandfather-like figure to Harry at this point. Like, he's in his 70s. Like, he's not like a father figure, but, like, definitely kind of a grandfather almost. Or a grandmother by the amount of tea he makes and stuff. But, like, I think that's really, like, a really important role he has. Like, he's the grandparent you visit on the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, like, them actually going to the library and doing the thing, that's a big improvement from Sorcerer's Stone, because they're supposed to be researching Nicholas Flamel during those Christmas holidays, and instead they're playing chess, they're gazing into mirrors, like, they're doing everything except going to the library.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Hermione's here this time around, so...
Yep. You know, that's 100% true. If she wasn't there, they would have gotten waylaid by a chess game, like, by the second floor.
Exactly. I mean, also, if she wasn't here and the firebolt arrives, like, no one tells McGonagall and they're off flying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank God Hermione's here.
For sure.
Hey, the firebolt is perfectly fine, so...
This is true.
True. And so we hear about the usual magnificent Christmas decorations had been put up, despite the fact that hardly any students remained to enjoy them. And, like, yes, please. Like... I love that. I think it's so important for, like, the students remaining behind to, like, still feel the holiday spirit. So, like, good on Dumbledore for, like, still going all out with the decorations.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And even the Christmas spirit and the decorations and all the food smells from the kitchen, it's such a nice little ambiance moment. But then, you know, JK turns it into a tiny reminder that Scabbers is still there. Like, all the time, you know, and I feel like there's a whole episode worth of when Scabbers is mentioned and what's happening and clues that are dropped and what he might overhear or whatever is going on. But here, you know, he's sniffing around hopefully. And I have to kind of wonder, is this Harry's perception of watching Scabbers stick his nose out, like, it seems hopeful, or is Peter actually kind of hopeful because he's made it to Christmas and is still alive and Sirius hasn't got him yet? It's an interesting little that it's specifically stated hopefully, and you just wonder, like, whose motivation is on that word.
Yeah. You remind me of Susie Bones and Puffs, where it's like, we all thought you'd be dead by now, but look at you standing there alive. That's the energy Peter brings.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then we do get to Christmas and Christmas presents. And can I just say, and I actually thought about this properly because I was like, okay, we all know the scene in the movie where a very broom-shaped like parcel arrives and everyone's like, what could it be? But they don't mention like a case or a box. So, but even if it were in a case or a box, it'd be a very long, still sort of properly thinner-ish package. Like, what else would it be? Like, how are you like tearing the paper off and it's like, oh my god, it's a broomstick. Like, you must have still get some sort of an idea.
Yeah, it's really hilarious. It gets me every time. It's like, I wonder what could possibly be in this broomstick-shaped package. And I also, I really hate that the movie does the firebolt dirty by just like throwing it in the last 5 seconds, and we don't get any of this drama and question about who sent it and all of those things, and then we don't actually get to see the firebolt do anything cool. And yeah, it makes me upset. But even then, in the movie, it seems like they all knew what it was. Like, oh, a broomstick-shaped package arrived. I wonder what it could be. It was definitely a broomstick, and it's already unwrapped because they already knew. So it's like, I think it's almost like a retcon of like, no, kids are smart enough to recognize that a broomstick-shaped package probably has a broomstick in it.
Yeah, it's just nonsense. I'm just, yeah. But hey, we're gonna undo the dirty for the firebolt and naming this chapter's sponsorship after the firebolt. So,
woo woo! Because yeah, I mean, honestly, it does read like it's sponsored by the firebolt, but they're like, he wanted to polish it, but there was nothing to polish. He wanted to straighten its wigs, but all the twigs were perfect already.
So then they just sat there staring at it.
It is brand new.
Yep.
I mean, Sam's song did not help at all.
But yeah, then we're obviously discussing, because there's no note, who could have sent the firebolt. And
this is fun. This is really fun.
Little paragraph here because, yeah. So it says, Dumbledore was just passing it on to me. He wouldn't spend hundreds of galleons on me. He can't go giving students stuff like this. But, you know, McGonagall did, so...
No, she didn't. Like, she got Harry a very good broom. Like, Firebolt is supposed to be like...
Yeah, but that was still not cheap.
Yeah, but Firebolt's supposed to be like luxury broom. Like, you know, priced on request or whatever it is. Like,
it's international standard.
Yeah. I mean...
But still...
It's still a significant amount of money that a teacher spent on a student.
Oh, yeah. I've always kind of like... I've kind of like thought about brooms kind of in like the ways to think about like bikes almost. Like you can get like a bike for like $500 or whatever it is, like a good bike, like a mountain bike or something like that. You can get like a athletic bike, like a road bike that my dad has for like a couple $1,000. You can get like the speed Tour de France kind of thing that's like $50,000. I'm guessing. I have no idea, but like maybe it's like that kind of thing, but with brooms. But who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Potentially. But I still don't understand, like, why she wouldn't help replace Harry's broom or the firebolt that she suspects could have something wrong with it. Like, she could get him a new Nimbus. She could give him the Nimbus 2001. She could just, like, for Gryffindor to the bone McGallion to not buy her Star Seeker a new broom is wild.
No.
Like, even if she just was like, I didn't do this, here you go, here's a broom. Like, she's letting him use the school brooms, which they talk about being crap. Like, I just don't, I feel like she would, I mean, she encourages him to get a new one at, like, once, but I feel like if Gryffindor's status was on the line, she would cough it up.
But I mean, like, at least Oliver is talking with Harry about, like, you gotta get another broom. So, like, maybe McGonagall was waiting for Harry to, like, make a choice, and then she would get him another broom. Mm. And Harry just, like, wouldn't, because he's like, I'm not getting anything Malfoy thinks is good.
Or maybe it's just, like, they're waiting until, like, there's more games after Christmas to get him a broom. Maybe.
Yeah, the post-Christmas sales. That's what she was waiting for.
Boxing Day in the Wizarding World.
Or maybe she did it in the first year and then was told off. And that's why she's not doing it again.
Oh. Nah.
Maybe.
Like who would tell her off? Dumbledore is all in on this.
But there is a board of governors.
Yes, because they're aware of what's going on.
Well, they're potentially parents of other children. Lucius Malfoy was on it, and he's a father of another child, so...
Maybe.
Yeah,
and you can guarantee that he brought that up. Draco was so telling his father about Harry getting a broom and not getting expelled.
But that was because it was the first year, so that's a different rule break.
But Lucius was on the board of governors then, so he would know, and he would have brought it up to everyone else. So if McGonagall now goes and buys another broom, that's maybe too risky.
But don't they like agree to keep it a secret that she's the one who got it for him?
Yeah.
So the only people who should really know that is just the four of them. I mean, and probably Dumbledore.
Yeah, that's true. Like, Lucius shouldn't know about the broom from McGonagall. Yeah, no, I think McGonagall is way too invested in Quidditch to let a potential thing like being in trouble stop her.
Exactly.
Clearly. But it's like Harry could have bought his own broom. He's got the money.
Well, not the firebolt. Like, Harry was like, that would empty my Gringotts vault.
He doesn't know that. He just assumes that.
Listen, when teenagers show fiscal responsibility, we encourage it.
Yes.
Yeah. No. I agree he shouldn't, but he also, like, he just imagines it would probably empty his whole vault. He doesn't actually know that.
Yeah.
And they don't learn maths, so what do they know?
I believe somebody have done the calculations on this. And from what I remember, the Potters and their family line, thanks to their, I think it's Harry growth potion, I believe, are in the same wealth class as the Malfoys, if not richer. So Harry is a millionaire, if not billionaire.
No. Like, maybe millionaire, but, like, he's definitely not a billionaire. He's not, like, stupid rich. He's just rich.
I think he's stupid rich. But it's all conjecture anyway. Like, we can't really ask the author about this anymore.
Also, she's terrible at maths.
Yeah, that too.
That too, yes. Very, very much so.
Yeah. But if it's not McGonagall, their next guess is ridiculous.
It's Lupin.
Wild.
Yeah. And I think, partially Lupin is thrown in there because it's a new person that we know, and we have so much mystery still to discover about this character. So we're just throwing some shade at him. But yeah, wild guess.
Oh, yeah. And I like how it's like brought in that Lupin's got kind of a mystery going on, and it's almost a throwaway line because if the firebolt doesn't arrive and they don't guess Lupin, which again, wild, Ron never would mention to Harry that Lupin isn't in the hospital wing when he was cleaning the trophies and or cleaning the bedpans. Sorry, the bedpans. And so I like how it's very subtly put in there, and it's almost, if this specific conversation didn't happen, this information would never come to light. But also, like, are we actually to believe that if a professor gets sick, they also have to stay in the hospital wing? I feel like Madame Pomfrey would do home visits to, wherever they're living in the castle so that they aren't forced to hang out with kids in a sickbed.
No, everyone goes to the hospital wing. It's a great equalizer.
I'm just picturing like Snape with a head cold laying in a bed and then the kids being like, Snape,
Severus Snape.
Well, there is like the fact that like we don't really see this in the books, but we know that a lot of teachers live off campus as well. Like they don't actually live at Hogwarts. Like a lot of them do. Like McGonagall clearly does, and Snape clearly does as well. But like many of them actually don't live there, which is probably a good sign. So they could just be going to St. Mungo's.
Potentially. I feel like though, like if you have Madame Pomfrey right there, why would you go to London?
True, it is more convenient.
Yeah. I guess it depends on what's going on.
I think that the teachers wouldn't go to Madame Pomfrey for, a cold.
Well,
because
yeah.
A, that doesn't really happen, and B, they have pepper up potion. But then also, we do see when McGonagall gets hit in the chest by those 5 stun spells, she's with Pomfrey until Pomfrey's like, this needs more than just one me. This needs multiple professionals. When she then is sent on. But up until that, she is apparently in the hospital wing, so.
True. Maybe there's like a professor wing to it, like a separate little room or corridor or something.
Pomfrey has those privacy curtains, right? That she uses in Chamber of Secrets. Mm-hmm. So there's those if like Snape really didn't want to hang out with, his students while he has a head cold.
And I mean, I imagine those are just like directly imagery stolen from real hospitals.
Probably.
Those exist as well. That doesn't stop you from hearing anything either side because it's a curtain.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And also kind of on the, just going back to like almost throwaway lines with little mysteries revealed. I love the sneakoscope going off when Ron tries to kick Crookshanks and then kicks the trunk. It's another one where it's like, this never would have happened if this one specific thing did not occur. And it's such a good hint because it's a callback. When Ron is sending it to Harry, it won't stop whistling because Scabbers is there. But Ron thinks it's because Fred and George are pranking Bill. But it's quiet when Harry gets it, and it doesn't start going. They don't hear it again. They don't hear it going off until they're all on the train with Scabbers and things are quiet. And then they actually can hear it. Because obviously when they're all like on the platform and everything and they're all nearby, they're not going to be able to hear that whistling in his trunk. But as soon as it's a quiet moment, then they do hear it. And I also love that it's also a red herring of Lupin because we don't think that anything could be shady with a rat at this point. And so it's almost like, oh, well, is Lupin like, is he up to something? Is something, is he not a guy on the up and up? What's going on here? So I love that the sneakoscope is a part of it. And I wish that it's in like the rest of things more, but I guess it's kind of a cheat.
I mean, we get the sneakoscope again in Goblet and in Deathly Hallows. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also, like, the Ron is like, can you not shut the thing up that I gave you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, this is all part of, like, Jo's broader pattern where she drops clues during Christmas every book, where we get crucial information about, like, who someone is or, like, how something works magically. And so I wrote an essay on Muggle about this called Getting a Clue for Christmas. So in this case, the red herring is from last chapter, because it seems like on the first read that, like, Sirius was the Potter's secret keeper and betrayed them. Dun, dun, dun! Big clue. Oh my gosh. But it wasn't during Christmas, so no, that's a red herring. Mm-hmm. The real clue is the Scabbers one, where Scabbers, once so fat, was now very skinny. Patches of fur seem to have fallen out. So that's the real clue, that Scabbers is stressed, and there's a reason why, and it's not just Crookshanks. Mm-hmm. And then we also get a clue with Lupin's sickness, that it has something more to it, and this is reiterated by Ron and by Trelawney.
Right.
So, like, she's really, like, sort of flashing a neon sign about Lupin's sickness specifically. And later on, we actually settled the question of, like, what's with Snape's potion? Like, does Snape hate Lupin enough to poison him? Like, what's going on and all of that? Because during the feast, Dumbledore says, Severus, you've made the potion for him again? And so now we know that, like, the potion is on the up and up. Like, Dumbledore's making Snape do it. So that, that's that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, like, Jo does a lot of work dropping clues here in addition to all the Christmassy stuff.
Yeah. Which is fun.
There is something when you don't have classes to occupy all the time with.
Yes.
True.
Well, like, usually we're spending time, on Christmas feeling our feelings and crying about them. Because, like, God, Christmas is depressing in these books.
That is for sure.
Only 3 weeks away.
Yeah. And it seems like, you know, with the holidays, from the list of people who are there, it seems like maybe just the heads of house are required to stay. But I kind of was curious, like, what if none of their students are there? Would they still technically be required? We don't 100% know. We know Gryffindor and Slytherin have students there, and there's 2 nervous-looking first years. Maybe one's in Hufflepuff and one's in Ravenclaw, but we don't really know.
Yeah.
And then Dumbledore's probably staying because of Harry. Filch probably just has nowhere to go. Madam Pince, I guess, did not invite him home for the holidays. Hagrid isn't going to leave Buckpeak, and Lupin's ill again. So, you know, except for Trelawney, who we know lives there and doesn't have anywhere else to go either. Like, it seems like everybody else who could go somewhere did leave, except for probably the heads of house are required to stay, which is kind of interesting.
I'm not entirely sure about that, because for example, we know with McGonagall that she's a widower. So she is a widow, I guess. Like, she lost her husband. Like, if she had children that are grown up by now, she's fairly old. So, like, I think she's moved into Hogwarts full time. Snape has nobody at home, so I think he's in the same boat, where they live at Hogwarts full time year round. So Christmas at Hogwarts is their norm, I guess.
But it would also make sense to me that as long as at least one student from your house is staying, you as a head of house are also required to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is why I'm just curious about Sprout and Flitwick, because McGonagall and Snape have to stay because we know that there's Gryffindor and Slytherin students, but unless the first years are one each, Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, it doesn't necessarily seem like Sprout and Flitwick, like, they seem like the type to probably have families or somewhere else that they could potentially be. So unless they're required as head of house to stay, that's the only thing that just kind of made sense with me with who's left.
I don't know that I agree they're required to stay. I feel like it's sort of a big ask to require them to stay just because they're heads of house. Like, what if they have Christmas plans? I think like someone has to be responsible for the kids, but, like, you know, Hagrid could be head of Hufflepuff in absentia or something. I mean, not Hagrid, like someone responsible, but you know what I mean.
Or like McGonagall could take Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw as well.
Yeah.
If there's only like a dozen students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess it just also depends on how many are there.
Yeah.
It's not as if they're in the common rooms anyway, so, like,
True.
There's no real effect there.
Also, this was a college humor joke that was accidentally canonized in the House editions, that Flitwick and Sprout are married. But if that's true, then they could just, you know, be spending Christmas together at Hogwarts.
True.
Yeah. Would be an interesting couple.
Yeah. So of the students we meet Derek, who is, like, so nervous and so terrified when Dumbledore actually addresses him. Yeah. And he's interesting. He's the only boy we know who's in the class of 2000. Because the only other people we know who are 2 years under Harry are Astoria Greengrass and Romilda Vane.
I didn't realize that Romilda was 2 years under. I always thought that she was Ginny's year.
Nope. Because she's 4th year in Half-Blood Prince. Yeah. So yes.
Wow. She's she's a mature little lady.
Yep. She knows what and whom she wants.
And will not stop at love potions to get it.
Nope. But yeah, no, there's not much to say about Derek, but, like, you know, shout out to, like, one of the fun bit characters and an excellent trivia question.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine right now. Let's hope he's not that kind of Derek.
Isn't that The Good Place?
The Good Place.
Same actor, though. I knew exactly what you
I
meant.
was desperately trying to remember Derek in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I was like,
same actor, same kind of character.
Yeah, same actor, but in The Good Place, Derek.
Yeah.
With wind chimes for genital.
Oh, God.
Yeah. No, if we're thinking Derek, I will just always go to Derek Huff because, Dancing with the Stars finale was yesterday and it was amazing.
Fair enough.
Yes.
But it wouldn't be Christmas without Christmas crackers. And I'm going to pull some tomorrow night because I'm going to a work Christmas event.
Ooh.
But hey,
have fun.
These ones seem to be a lot cooler than the little paper foldy hats that you pull out of them, because they seem to potentially be adapting to whoever is pulling.
Yep.
Because we get the crazy hat again.
Yes, the vulture hat.
I always had a headcanon that Dumbledore is influencing what's coming out of this hat, because he likes little jokes and he's the one who it's like crackers and offers the end to Snape, and then also swaps him for his wizard's hat that is pulled out of his. And so I always just kind of interpreted it as Dumbledore's little jab.
I mean,
that he could easily explain away.
I am not saying I disagree with that because I love this. My sort of initial assumption is that it's like the quasi-sentience of magical objects. That sort of part of the magic is like the crackers themselves, pull a gift based on who's pulling them, and they're like, what would be really funny for this guy to pull out of a Christmas cracker? So yes, I think the crackers themselves have a sense of humor, but I would also be totally down with Dumbledore being behind it.
I mean, if we saw more of them in action, we could potentially answer the question.
That's true.
Yeah.
What would you pull out of a Christmas cracker?
Yeah, listeners, tell us, what would your Christmas cracker present be?
Oh, God.
I mean, the thing is, though, that in, Muggle Christmas crackers, there are those, paper foldy crown head type thing. So it is really cool that it's headwear that comes out of it still. But the fun soon ends because the drama queen enters.
Are you kidding? The fun begins when the drama queen enters. Oh,
I was going to say the sarcasm begins, but the fun?
Okay, Trelawney and McGonagall at Christmas dinner is the most fun I've ever had in these books.
Even with the ferrets?
Even with the ferret. God, this is just so great.
I'm not sure if it is really better than Cough Drop Dolores.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
No, there are other moments that are more satisfying or whatever, but in terms of fun, I could just read the scene over and over and I burst out laughing every time.
She does though, she enters and immediately does her thing of someone's gonna die. So we get never forget that when 13 dine together, the first to rise will be the first to die. And we do know that this sort of comes true, but I'm wondering, is this just because it's a sort of passed down quote that Sia's just learn about? Because it's not really something that she is coming up with on the spot, I would assume, because it is she says never forget, so it must be sort of common knowledge type thing.
Yeah, I think it's just an unlucky number 13 subversion of in the magical world. That's what 13 is, unlucky. And I'm sure that Trelawney's education and divination probably came from, her family. And so knowledge and superstition just being passed down is probably just kind of where that goes. I mean, it is, because it does come true, it could be some kind of mild premonition. But I think that the basis of it is just in the classic superstition of the number 13.
Yeah.
But of course, when she sits down, they are 14 dining together.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
so
the wizards are a superstitious lot. So, it makes sense that this would be a well-known superstition they have. But but also it's such a fun Easter egg for fans because, like you said, Tavi, it comes true this time, right? Because Scabbers is already at the table. So they're 13 dining before Trelawney shows up, and Dumbledore stands up to welcome her.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Dumbledore is the first to die.
Dun, dun, dun.
But it's fun because it actually comes true at least 3 times during the series. And I feel like this is Joe having a lot of fun with, like, Trelawney's predictions actually coming true. Like, for all that Joe is like, oh my god, she's a fraud, it's all lies, like, she's usually right. So yeah, so the times it comes true off the top of my head. So this time with Dumbledore, in Order of the Phoenix Chapter 5 at Grimmauld Place when they're having their big dinner, Sirius is the first to stand up, which, like, whoa. And then in Deathly Hallows 5, when they're having a wake for Moody after the Battle of Seven Potters, Lupin is the first one who gets up and is like, well, we better go get Moody's body. And of course, Lupin is the first to die. There's one time in the series it didn't happen, though. During the Yule Ball in Goblet of Fire, Chapter 23, Dumbledore stands up from the table of champions, partners, and judges, which is 13 of them. So Dumbledore stands up first, but Cedric is the first to die. However, if you believe that Cedric's a vampire and immortal, and that Trelawney foresaw the Twilight crossover, then Dumbledore was the first to permanently die. And so it comes true yet again.
Now, I have a question.
Yes.
Does Avada Kedavra work on dead vampires?
Ooh.
It depends, right? Because if we go by the Buffy model, where vampires don't have a soul, and if you believe that Avada Kedavra purely, like, rips the soul from the body, and doesn't harm the body, then I would imagine Avada Kedavra wouldn't affect a vampire because there's no soul there to begin with.
Huh. That's a good pondering.
Yeah. I mean, I pulled that out of my ass in about 10 seconds, so, you know, I welcome debate.
I don't have a better answer, so.
No, it'd be interesting, because then he would have... I'm sure there's some conjure stake spell they can use. Not, steak as in for the heart, not the food. That you could use. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Who knows? Yeah.
But you know who isn't impressed with Trelawney's predictions, even though all of them are right?
I wonder. Could it be McGonagall?
It would be McGonagall. And just... they're so much fun together. I can't even. And what I realized on this revisit of the chapter is that McGonagall and Trelawney are essentially the future versions of Hermione and Luna Lovegood. Because, right? Well, because we know Hermione, like, idolizes McGonagall and, like, wants to be just like her. And Luna and Trelawney get on famously when they meet at Slughorn's party in Half-Blood Prince. And, like, the way they interact is so reminiscent of it. Because, like, I particularly think there's a couple instances, I think especially Book 5, where Luna gets a lot less out there and a lot more snippy when she's disrespected by Hermione. Just like here, you know, when McGonagall is like, oh, you didn't see that in your inner eye? And Trelawney gets less misty in her voice. And she's like, well, if you must know. So... yes, I feel like this Christmas dinner with McGonagall and Trelawney is just Luna and Hermione's future in 50 years, and I am so here for it.
Yeah, I also kind of thought, like, she gets less misty, it seems like she is potentially speaking slightly more accurately, because she's talking about how Lupin will be gone, and he is gone from Hogwarts before long, and he does die earlier than most, and so kind of in her whole, like, Lupin will not be with us for much longer, it is pretty accurate. I mean, either way you look at it.
She knows what's up.
Yeah, she I mean, I there's definitely, you know, more of those, like, Trelawney maybe not isn't all that crazy. But then also, like, you know, when Luna has her outlandish ideas, but then sometimes she says things and you're like, oh, you're like 100% right. I feel like it's another like little crossover moment there.
With a lot of these, this is like horoscopes to me. Like, yeah, you can write some like very vague stuff and it will come true. Mm-hmm. It's not really difficult to predict that the defense against the dark arts teacher is not going to be considering that has happened a while. Mm-hmm. So.
For like 50 years now, almost.
Yeah, it's been like 40 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. Like, I always thought the less misty was just evidence of, like, irritation that, like, sometimes, like, you know, McGonagall and Hermione do get under their skin. Like, not often, but it happens. Uh-huh. But it's interesting if that's correlated to accuracy of predictions. Also, there is one line here that stood out to me when Trelawney and McGonagall are bickering, and Trelawney says that one does not parade the fact that one is all-knowing. And I'm like, Trelawney, as a fellow Ravenclaw, we are a podcast of mostly Ravenclaws. I beg to differ. We parade that fact quite a bit at every opportunity we are given.
Yes, I will die on my hill of fun facts and anecdotes. I have far too many.
So, Monday? Recently, I had a meetup with my Harry Potter group where we did a tour of the Harry Potter store in New York City with, like, you know, one of the workers showing us all the, like, hidden gems and secrets. And she kept, like, offering us trivia. But, like, the trivia was very clearly for, like, casual fans and not for the Harry Potter meetup group. And, like, it's so hard for me not to answer trivia questions when they're posed. And I was like, no, but, like, these trivia questions are silly and other people should have a chance to answer, but also, like, come on, how do you all not know this?
I've never related to a statement more.
Right?
We are judging you for not knowing when the International Statute of Secrecy was founded. Like, come on. Like, how do you not know that?
Well, like,
1692.
She asked, they're like, so, like, what element is associated with each Hogwarts house? And then everyone's like, well, I guess would fire be Gryffindor? And I was like, come on.
That's an element.
Anyway, so we've talked a lot about Trelawney's predictions, but I want to talk about her secret heartache. So
okay, it's not, you know, this is the Christmas episode, not the Valentine's Day episode.
I know, but Christmas is when Trelawney's huge crush for Lupin is most on display. So I won't, like, bore you with all of the details, because check out the essay Professor Trelawney's Secret Crush by Daniela Teo over at MuggleNet from years ago, because she lays out a flawless case for why Trelawney is madly in love with Lupin. But just a few highlights, right? Keeping this in mind and reading the scene, it makes so much sense. Because Trelawney shows up, and she shows up uncharacteristically. She doesn't usually, like, come hang out with everyone else. And she's in a sequined green dress. She got all gussied up for this. And so she suddenly comes to Christmas dinner unexpectedly in her pretty green dress. And the first thing she says upon sitting down is, "Where is dear Lupin?" And I'm like, "Aww." And then she's talking about Lupin, and she says she offered to crystal gaze for him. But he positively fled, as he does whenever women pursue him. We know that. And, I mean, Daniela goes into a lot more detail about crystal balls and his Boggart and all of that. But just, like, I love that Trelawney has this little crush on Lupin. I think it's really sweet.
Yeah. I could theoretically get behind that, I guess. I will read the article and have more, I will have more thoughts on the matter. But yeah, I think, that's a pretty decent case, right, from the get-go.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely convinced, just because, like, I think that him running from the crystal gazing is just him being like, ain't no way I'm letting her find out I'm a werewolf.
Yeah.
There's always, like, the constant paranoia for him.
No, like, clearly Lupin doesn't reciprocate. But, like, I think the case made for Trelawney's one-sided crush is a fairly strong one.
Yeah.
So, we leave the Christmas feast with poor heartbroken Trelawney, and there's a mention of Sir Cadogan partying it up with monks and headmasters in his portrait. And I don't know about you guys, but I envision Sir Cadogan as one hell of a party animal.
Clearly, like, he definitely, like, his entire personality is of a bit of a Chad almost, like he's also a frat boy.
Well, and I'm just saying, like, party animal is how I cosplay Sir Cadogan as the many, many, many people who rode my pony at MystiCon 2019 can attest.
Yeah. And he has, this happens a few times, I believe. Like, he gets drunk with monks and stuff a few times in the books, I believe. And my constant question here is, what happens with the wine? Does it, like, is it forever gone, or does, like, Filch, like, repaint the bottles as full?
Yeah, I think you just have to repaint more wine.
It'd be a really fun, like, a terrible job of Filch. Like, where did Cadogan put the wine? And 2, what shade of red? And does that affect the taste?
Yeah, I just envision that's sort of like the internship of being a wizard painter. Like, you know, if you want to, like, paint wizard portraits and be all fancy, but you're, like, an 18-year-old intern, you're repainting food and wine for all the Hogwarts portraits. Like, that's your job.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine you have a couple inhabitants of portraits looking at what you're doing and being like, no, a little lighter. A little lighter? Okay. A little bit more?
Yeah, but also make it a bigger barrel. Like, let's you know, add a few gallons. Yeah, yeah. Give it a heavier pour of paint.
Because there's also this scene where Harry is in Gilderoy Lockhart's office, where he sees the portraits themselves curling their own hair. So that's an additional piece of evidence for the whole, you got to repaint things, and portraits are impermanent.
Yeah.
So, fun way of looking at it as well.
So, we go through the common, through Sir Cadogan into the common room after being called Scurvy Curs. And then McGonagall shows up for the firebolt. And first, I have to say, there's a line here that Hermione is pretending to read a book and hiding her face behind him, but she's holding the book upside down. And reading this book at 9 years old, I thought that was the funniest thing to have ever happened. Like, I would burst out laughing. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still very amused by this.
She is so nervous and terrified.
Right?
Yeah, she knows that they will not be happy.
Oh, no. Yeah. Which, like, honestly, like, more credit to her for going to McGonagall, like, knowing it wouldn't be appreciated.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's why she's in Gryffindor and not in Ravenclaw.
Yep.
Like Neville.
Yeah. And I also love her looking darkly at the broom as though it too had been criticizing her cat.
Yeah, I love that line definitely more than the Upside Down book. But yeah, so we then get the explanation of what's going on. That Hermione and McGonagall does agree with her, think that this broom was sent to Harry by Sirius Black, and you know, that's correct.
Yeah. And I'm sort of astounded at the fact that, like, Harry and Ron think this cannot possibly be the case. Because literally 2 years ago, a servant of Lord Voldemort jinxed Harry's broom in an attempt to kill him. Like, we saw this. Harry was 50 feet in the air. He nearly swallowed a snitch. And now Harry and Ron are like, a jinxed firebolt? Inconceivable. How could that happen?
Yeah.
It is one of the major issues of consistency throughout the books. Like, set a rule, try to keep to it. Maybe.
I mean, I think it's more that maybe, like, Harry and Ron's memory isn't what it could be.
Well, yes, this is a given. I also kind of wonder, like, if you have a firebolt, why don't you just ask the manufacturer? Like, I'm sure these things have like a VIN number, like a registration number, like this is Firebolt 5203 or something like that, where you can like ask Randolph Spudmore, who makes them, like, can you check this one out? Can you send a new one? Or something. Just like, seems like a way easier way to deal with this than have a bunch of amateurs do it.
Well,
yeah, I mean, that is a fair point, but then I guess if you are considering someone tampered with it, can you seriously assume this wasn't done, in the manufacturing process?
Mm-hmm.
but also if they were going to look up, well, who bought this broom? Their answer would be a cat with a note, which doesn't give you any more information.
And also doesn't make it any more,
unusual.
You'd be like, oh yeah, then it's fine.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I was worried it was a murderer, but a cat? Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Crookshanks would never wish Harry ill.
Mm-hmm. Well,
he only wishes Scabbers
that's
ill.
how you get Hermione, or that's how you get back on Hermione's side, or Hermione on your side, because you're like, oh, well, if Crookshanks is the one who did it, then it must be fine.
Yeah. Obviously.
And McGonagall must like it because it was a cat. Solved.
Yeah, McGonagall would be like, oh, yeah, no notes.
If McGonagall turns into her Animagus form, can't she just like chat with Crookshanks and be like, what's up? Where did this come from?
Well, I guess that goes down to how much do animals actually talk like we humans talk. And how much is their interaction, not just like behavior and like mannerisms.
Well, Crookshank is a magical cat, so...
But also, like, they meow at each other, like...
Yeah, but no, they don't do that, actually. I know too much about cats. Meowing is actually learned behavior they only do to interact with humans. They don't actually do that with each other.
They mimicked the cries of babies and wiggled their ways into our hearts.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so insidious.
Yep.
Well, they are cats.
The ancient Egyptians worshipped them. I mean...
The only species to have self-domesticated twice. Mm-hmm. Which is quite ingenious. My question, though, about this is, what in the world is Gringotts doing? Letting, like...
They only care about the money.
Yeah, clearly, because, like, hey, I'm a cat with a note. Can I withdraw a ridiculous amount of money from the Black family vault?
If you have the key, yes, you can.
And, like...
Money is money. Keys are keys.
I mean, even when Hagrid and Harry go for the first time, they don't really care that Harry is there. They're like, do you have the key? Like, if Hagrid was there on his own with the key, they'd be like, well, you have the key, so whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's actually a really cool parallel with the Firebolt, right? Because we talked about ring theory, about how, like, books 3 and 5 mirror each other with, like, book 4 as the axis. Mm-hmm. And so here, this is just perfect, because in book 3 with the Firebolt, we have a present that is assumed to be dangerous and from a murderer, but it's actually innocent. Whereas in book 5, we flip it, where there's a present everyone assumes is innocent, but actually is from a murderer and kills its receiver. The Devil's Snare that Bode receives in St. Mungo's. Right?
Right. Interesting, yeah.
And then Goblet of Fire, as sort of the midpoint, can do a further one, where in Goblet of Fire, Harry gets a second-hand gift, where Cedric gives him the clue about taking a bath with the egg after the Yule Ball. And this gift is second-hand from a murderer, but is ironically meant to save Harry's life, not take it. So we have all the combinations here.
I like it.
Yeah. It also clearly seems that a broom would be a really long way around. Like, if you're going to try to kill Harry, just sell him, like, send him some Devil Snare. Or poison some cupcakes.
Yep. Well, I'm sure the house elves are meticulous about food, so there would be no poison.
Well... There's a poisoned bottle of meat, not 3 books from now, so...
And spiked cauldron cakes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like poison his food, like that he's eating at the feast.
Oh no!
But
like,
yeah, if
just sounds.
But no, yeah, if you're having snacks and stuff, then yes. Yeah, fair enough.
But hey, like, fireball is a really, really expensive way of killing him.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, listen, like, if I'm gonna kill him on a broom, it's gonna be on a clean sweep.
Nimbus 2001. It's good enough. He'll take it.
He wouldn't have ever flown it, though, because Draco likes it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it was not the broom to choose.
Let's get him a Nimbus 2000, and McGonagall won't ask me questions, because it's a Nimbus 2000.
Yeah, honestly, they could have just gotten him another Nimbus. It's probably cheaper at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway, also, further patterns throughout the book. So this year begins Hermione's noble tradition of getting into huge fights with Ron every Christmas. This happens every single book, starting with this one, except Order of the Phoenix.
What makes it a noble tradition?
Because it's how they express their love.
Okay.
They're going to be
Thanks for asking.
They're going to be a very stable couple.
Yep. You know what? I imagine that, like, you know, they're just going to start having huge fights on Christmas, like, every year, even when they're married. Like, yeah.
Ron, why did you buy them these presents? This is ridiculous. Well, I thought it would be fun. It almost took their nose off. Like, you know, he's like getting them biting teacups and all sorts of random stuff. And she's just like, Can we get some sensible gifts?
What do you mean we can't put fireworks on the Christmas tree? Like, I want to put fireworks on the Christmas tree. Yeah. I think this is their Christmas tradition.
Well, speaking of traditions, we have a tradition.
We do.
And it's called the 7 ingredients of today's special.
Yeah.
And today's special includes people. So I mean, we've proven time and again that we will always find something that adds up to the number 7, and we can always, you know, use the right qualifiers to get there. So the qualifier today is teachers who appear in person. Because otherwise we have Lupin, but he doesn't appear in person. So that leaves us with Dumbledore, McGonagall, Snape, Sprout, Flitwick, Hagrid, and Trelawney.
Yay! Woo-hoo. Well done.
Qualifiers for the win.
Yeah. Just like, on an ending note, I think, and I'll cheerfully debate this, that this is the silliest chapter in the whole series. Like, it's so much fun. It's so ridiculous. Like, McGonagall and Trelawney dining together is inspired, but even the narration is sassy as hell. Like, you know, when Harry and Ron leave dinner, they go through the corridor that was devoid of mad axemen, which I burst out laughing every time. And I'm like, I don't know what giggle water Jo was drinking when she wrote this chapter, but it's fantastic. I love it so much.
Yeah, first tackling such heavy topics, it is pretty hilarious.
I think in general, a lot of the like mid-book chapters tend to be sort of funnier because they're not dealing with the serious end of book stuff, where we, you know, jump into the action adventure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you it's the funniest for now without having had a chance to look if I can find you something that I personally find funnier, but then also it is very subjective. So
yeah. Well, because I feel like there are a lot of like funny scenes that come to mind, but like just sort of the like protracted humor of this really, really gets me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very dry, and I like that.
Yes.
Hey, Irvin.
Yeah?
What's playing on the pub's jukebox today?
Well, today, we're going to be listening to a song off of the Jingle Spells 5 compilation album called When 13 Dine by the Pumpkin Pasties, all about our favorite superstition of what happens when 13 dine together.
When 13 dined together, it was Christmas Day, and all the other students had gone away back home. When 13 dine together, though I have no experience in this, it seemed to me like like a pretty average Christmases. No wonder that I call home once now. First to rise, first to die, set the tone for the afternoon. Well, what's a Christmas dinner without a bit of impending doom? So Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas to you too.
That's a cool song.
So much Harry Potter music. It's amazing.
I know, really. Like, we could have just done, Sierra, your Harry baby for the pub's jukebox. I think that's what we're going to play every Christmas episode from now on.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Sierra, like, I think your burgeoning Wizard Rock career is off to a great start.
Owen's clearly going to be your manager.
Yep.
I'm here for it.
Patrick's going to be the producer.
Manager and choreographer.
Okay. I can't play any instruments, so, we need a band, but I'm here for it.
Well, but that leaves you a whole body free to dancing, so choreography is definitely going to happen. Well, thanks, Tavi, for visiting us today at the Three Broomsticks. I hope you enjoyed your butterbeer.
Thank you. I did. It was fun.
Yeah.
And
You,
tasty.
as always, been a fantastic guest. We always love having you.
Yeah, it was really, really great having you here.
That's good to be here, yeah.
Is there anything you want to shout out? Any social media handles you want to share? Anything where people can find you on the internet?
My incredibly inactive Instagram is TaviWR. But if you just want to go back into the archive of Muggles and Mudbloods, my old Harry Potter podcast is still available wherever you get podcasts, or almost all of them at least. And there's some interesting episodes with extremely weird theories there, so those are always fun.
So right up the alley of our
Right?
listeners.
Yeah. To quote Frozen, we love weird theories.
Yeah. We'll see if we get that up and running again at some point, but for now it's still available, so for those that want to, it's on Spotify.
Fantastic.
Cool. We will add links in the episode description on our website so listeners can go find it. And while we're talking about contacting us and finding us, we have social media ourselves. You can find us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook on our sorted handles. And they will also be linked in the episode description and on our website. Speaking of our website, that is 3broomstickspod.com with the 3 spelled out. You will find all the links to Irvin's essays. Sometimes there's Sophia's essays, but typically those two people's essays.
And Daniela Teo's essay in this case.
Yes, indeed. You can also submit a topic if you have any ideas of what weird theories we should talk about in the future. Let us know. And you can also email us at 3broomstickspod@gmail.com. This one is with the number 3. And don't forget, if you like this podcast, to give us a rating and reviewing us, because those really help push the podcast. And if you like the show, why don't tell your friends or your family? Considering this is Christmas time, you're probably with your family. And we always love if we see those shout outs out on social media.
Yeah. My dears, I have been crystal gazing, and to my astonishment, I saw our podcast doing another chapter episode the next time we meet at the Three Broomsticks. Who are we to refuse the promptings of fate? So next time, we are going to be discussing Half-Blood Prince Chapter 17, A Sluggish Memory. And with that, I've been Irvin.
I've been Sierra.
And I've been Oreo. Thank you for listening. See you next time in the Three Broomsticks.
Cheers!
Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here. Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butterbeer.
This episode of The Three Broomsticks was edited by Patrick Musilek. The theme song was written and performed by the Faithful Sidekicks. Make sure to check them out at thefaithfulsidekicks.com.
Oreo, to catch you up, I moved a day and a half ago, so I currently have tech support here installing internet in my apartment. So, you know, we may need to pause for drilling for a minute at some point.
Is it just me or have we lost Owen?
I think we will.
I have no idea what that
he
symbol
went
beside his name
completely
is.
silent.
There's that...
Yeah.
Okay. You back, Gavin? Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, Grandma was calling me, and I'm Skyping on the phone.
I hope Patrick doesn't add that as the end of episode sounds.
Dear God.
Scare everybody.